A lot of people, by the time they sit down, they already allow the mind to get in the way, and you have no energy. So I think that's the very first practice, to allow yourself to be a student.
Hi, and welcome to ForBassPlayersOnly.com. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman. If you've ever wanted to learn bass, you should know that right now there are thousands of people inside the For Bass Players Only community. A lot of them over 50. They're learning bass. They're having the time of their life playing music that they love. You should join them so you can experience that incredible transformation for yourself. As I always say, you're never too old to groove, so let's play bass. My guest this week is an old friend. Christian Fabian is an outstanding and energetic bassist, composer, and band leader with a fascinating story. Born in Sweden, raised in Germany, he's performed throughout Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, Austria, and Hungary. He attended Berklee College of Music in Boston, where he graduated magna cum laude with degrees in performance and film scoring.
Correct.
In addition to being the longtime bassist and co-leader for the Lionel Hampton band, Christian has performed and or recorded with Mike Longo, Gary Burton, Danny Gottlieb, Louis Nash, Jason Marcellus, Rick Margitza, my old friend from Detroit, Alvin Jones, also from Detroit, Bob Hunter, Chaka Khan, and so many others. And he has studied with Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter, Billy Taylor, and Ron Carter. He's released several stunning albums as a leader. Welcome back, Christian. It's great to have you back.
Thank you. Wow, yeah, thank you. Wow, you come prepared.
Well, we did 3 interviews. The first one, believe it or not, was in 2009.
Yeah, and it was all typing. I had you sent questions and I typed the answers. Yeah.
Yes, and then we did one again in 2013 at the NAMM show.
Yeah.
Then we did one at the Marlowe booth with you and David Pastorius. I was sitting in the middle, passing the mic back and forth.
That is correct. Yeah.
Which I didn't do too many times because it was a little awkward, but that was still a great interview. You had
very good. Yeah.
It was No Tricks was the name of the
No Tricks
you guys had done. So, 2018 was a while ago. You're always busy. You're always doing some cool stuff. And I know there's one thing in particular you want to talk about, a bass. So let me just turn it over to you. What's new? What's going on, Christian?
Well, I saw you at the NAMM show, and I was at the NAMM show this year, which was my first appearance there since, I think 2019 was the last time I was actually at the NAMM show helping Gerald Malo at the booth with the basses. And I ran into you on the hallway. I was with EBS and I was displaying a bass for Gerald called the Spock bass.
Yes.
And a little background story about the bass is Gerald Malo decided not to come to the NAMM show, but he had a new invention which came out last September, which was introduced at the Tiefgang event he's doing in Germany, which is a bass player get together with teachers and pretty much some of the best bass players in Europe teaching there, and people come from all over Europe to participate in that event. And he introduced the new bass called the Spock. Then
Spock, like Mr. Spock from Star Trek.
Yeah, like Mr. Spock from Star Trek. Yeah, the name was given by a good friend in New York. But anyway, so I asked him if he had plans to come to the NAMM show, and he said no. And I said, Gerald, people need to see this instrument. And I said, I'm happy to go there. I have a good friend in Los Angeles, Lance Crane. We did the Crane Fabian project. He lives in Sherman Oaks. I said, I stay with Lance. I go and show the bass, So then the question was, where do we join up? And a lot of our friends, Ike Amplifiers was not going, and then Phil Jones didn't go. I'm really close with Mike from Phil Jones Bass Amps. He's a great guy, great bass player.
Mike Abaronda? How do you?
Yeah, Abronda. That's right. He's a Jersey friend here. It's pretty close to where I am too.
Because I interviewed somebody yesterday and his name came up, and I said, every time I see Mike, he's always schlepping equipment he's carrying.
You should hear him. You should hear him play. I mean, everyone knows him working for Phil Jones, and he always plays at the booth. But he's an excellent, great bass player. Really, really, yeah. Funny because when I just moved from Boston to New Jersey, he was working in one of the music stores here, and I ran into him, and he was displaying Fodera basses, and I tried one of the Fodera basses, and you know. Actually, but he was in the store, and then years ago later, I ran into him again at the NAMM show working for Phil Jones. So, I mean, he's been around, but I mean, you know, anyway, people just don't know how great of a bass player he is, which I just want to point out.
Very friendly fellow.
Yeah, really great. And he's also a community worker. You know, he's always helpful, bringing people together, introducing people to each other, which is really important in this kind of small community. As you know, I mean, it's a lot of bass players, but you know, when it comes to amps and equipment and playing and shows and everything, people kind of come together, which happened because Gerald is friends with the two gentlemen who founded EBS, Electric Bass System Amplifier. So we ended up displaying Spark this year at the EBS booth from Sweden. And those guys are amazing. They've been around for over 30 years. And as you know, a lot of great bass players play their equipment. The who's who in the bass world come to the booth and everything. So Jared asked them, and he was really happy. He sent me an email. He called me, actually. He said, I found someone we can put the Spark at their booth, you know. So we were ending up at the EBS booth with Spark. And we were advertising it on social media. So we had a place, and people came and checked out the bass. And we got a lot of attention, and as you know, we won Best of Show with the Bass Gear magazine. So I was like, I mean, I had tears in my eyes because that was something I knew it would happen. Deep in my heart, I knew if people would see the bass and hear the bass, and Gerald, as you know, always comes up. He's like, for me, the Tesla, you know, for the bass equipment. He always comes up with new stuff, and it's always great. And but I didn't know it.
I held it. It weighs like what, 2 ounces or so. It's very light, very thin. Talk about the Spock bass. What do you want people to know about it?
Okay, it's about 6 to 8 pounds. It's very light. So people like, what is it? What is Spock all about? So it's kind of I call it a pandemic accomplishment because Gerald had someone walk into his shop during the lockdown from the university. He has a university in his hometown. And the guy walked in there and he said, well, we are developing a new material which we're using for satellites, for Formula One racing, and the blades for the windmill. You know, you have these blades for the energy, creating windmills in Germany. There's a lot of them these days, unbelievable. So we have this new material. We wanted to know if that could be used in the instrument world. And the funny thing is, Gerald said, no, I'm using only wood. And turns out that there started a research project which was sponsored by the German government, which is pretty cool. And so they worked together for 2 years with this new material, how it could be fused and used in a musical instrument. And
what is the material? What is it?
It's called, well, it's patented now. It's called the Marlowe Magic Mesh. It's an epoxy, and it's a material. It's the same. You know, it's green. It's not fiberglass, but it's a similar new invention from this university they were trying out in Formula One and racing and for these blades. So it's a mesh which is it's harder than metal. It's harder than steel, as far as I know. It's very, very strong when it puts together. So the way they did it, they came up with a top. And this top is, you know, he built a frame for the top, and this top is laid on the framework. You know, I don't have a barcode. I would like to show. Maybe I can go through my phone, but just go to the Marlowe bass guitar website.
Marleaux.
That is correct.
How does
And
that material affect the sound? Or with the pickups, does it matter what the material is, or are the kind of pickups that would pick up the sound? What kind of pickups are on the Spock bass?
everything is developed for this instrument. He had to go back to how you call it, back from scratch, basically. And so the tailpiece, the bridge, the pickup, the electronic, the neck, everything is specifically developed for the Spock. So it turns out to be a medium scale bass. It's 32 inches. What is regular? It's 32 or 34. But it's 2 inches less than the regular scale for bass guitars. The funny thing is you don't notice it when you look at the bass. It looks like a regular scale bass. And what else?
The pickups he developed himself. He's not using Arduino or Duncan or anything like that. He's using his own.
Well, he always works together with Delano, which is German, and Wolfgang, and usually he helps him develop specifically Marleaux pickups, but they are specifically made for his basses, so therefore they are Marleaux pickups. But so I think the strings are a little closer, the neck is a little shorter, the body of the bass is lighter, so therefore you cannot go with the entire length of the neck. And if you go to the Bass Gear magazine, to their website, they have a beautiful write-up about the instrument. You see some pictures, you see me talking about the bass, and you see also Vic from Bass Gear magazine holding the bass, so it's like it's hollow from the back, and when you flip it over.
Yes.
So it's perfectly balanced. So the interesting thing about this, we were with EBS, and as you know, I mean, the EBS amps are great. They're very, very powerful. And a lot of guys, some names I won't mention, I don't know, because they play other instruments, but it's always with Marleaux bass guitars, you have the who's who in the bass world come by because, the word got around and a lot of guys tried the bass. So, you're right there at the EBS booth with a big stack. We had the amp we used the most. It had a 210 on the top and a 4x10 on the bottom, and it was like, I think it was a 500 or 700 watt amplifier. You plug in the amp, so the bass is very punchy. It has the sound of the Spock is a little more mid-rangey than your regular bass. And what I heard from Gerald is that the bass really cuts through. No matter what kind of band you play in, it really kind of sticks out. It's a very present bass sound. So we had a lot of people play the bass and try the bass. And, there was particularly one guy who is very well known. And I remember the show started on Wednesday, and he came back. He played it again, and he loved it. It's like, and a lot of people checked it out. I mean, if you go to the Marleaux Facebook site or the Instagram site, I mean, there was a lot of pictures posted, a couple of clips posted about the bass. So it just got a lot of attention. And
it's different.
It's very different. Yeah, it's light. A lot of people, what's funny, I came there on Tuesday. Wait a minute, the show started on Thursday, Friday, right. Saturday, Sunday. So I was there on Wednesday to meet with the guy from EBS who was doing the booth. His name is Ralph. And I was meeting with
Ralph Burable.
That's right. Great guy. I mean, I love EBS. I love everyone I met. I was born in Sweden, so I was actually really looking forward to hang out with my countrymen because, I learned a few Swedish words and everything. And they were just great. It was just it was very productive because a lot of people came for the Spock and then they tried the EBS amp, and then some people came for the EBS amp and they were playing the Spock. It's like, wow, what is that? So it kind of really worked. There's a lot of networking going on. I was sending people over to Ralph and talk to him about the amp. And at some point, Ralph was sending people over to me and said, hey, this is, Christian representing Gerald Marleaux from Bass Guitars, talk to him. So it was really a very productive. It was very kind and very positive environment, which I kind of expected that, but it was actually beyond my expectations because we worked really well together. And so the I don't know what your question was. I got sidetracked a little bit,
I said, tell me about the Spock bass, but you're describing this, and I'm glad that I got to experience a lot of that firsthand. I held it.
You came by to the booth. That's right.
Yeah, more than once.
More than once.
So
that's right.
It's available now?
It's available now. You can go to the website. You can order the Spock. One of the reasons Gerald was not able to come to the show is also that he's backed up a little bit. So right now, the waiting time to get a Malo bass is about 6 to 8 months, about 8 months, maybe 9 months. So he was really backed up with a lot of orders, and he said that people have to wait for the instrument.
He needs to hire some more elves in his shop.
Yeah. COVID really put a damper on a lot of things, Yes. There were people showing up, and there were people leaving in the shop. And the thing is, it's a smaller shop. He has 3 to 4 workers. And, then he hired someone, and then something happened, and they left. And then every time he hires a new person, you have to work that person in. It's not like they can produce all those basses right away. I mean, even if they are an experienced bass builder or have some woodworking experience in advance, that doesn't mean you just, jump in there and you can do all the work right away. So you have to be trained. It's about half a year till they know every step of the production
Marlowe
of
way.
An instrument, the Malo way. So
I never knew his name was Gerhard. I always knew him as Gerald.
No, it's Gerald.
Gerhard.
Yeah, Gerald.
Gerald. Oh, Gerald.
Yeah, Gerald. Yeah. So I pronounce him Gerald. That's a German. Since I mentioned the name so often,
you could say Gerhard, and you can say Magneukirchen better than I.
Magneukirchen.
That's what I said. I've never said it the same way once. Well, that's great. What else is happening with you? You're busy. You're playing. You're writing. You're performing. What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously throughout the pandemic, the gigs went down, but I was really happy to be able to be very, like what I do, like the most creatively productive. So in 2020, I came out with a Bernard Purdy CD with Ronald Swansky playing organ. And then 2021, I came out with a duo CD with Rodney Jordan, the bass player. It's a very amazing upright bass player, playing with Marcus Roberts Trio with a CD called Conversation. I didn't do really anything in 2022, but last year in August, I had a digital release, and now the physical release of Hip to the Skip, which is a trio featuring Jason Marsalis on drums and Matt King, amazing keyboard player, on piano. We were doing this trio CD, and it's kind of interesting because it's another, I call it a pandemic accomplishment, because we went into the studio 5 times. Jason had this position in New Jersey. He was teaching at Montclair State University for vibraphone. And when he came, he usually would stay with me. And every time he came, I wasn't able to get a whole CD together, but I said, let's do just 2 songs. Let's go in the studio and record. And we did like 5 sessions between the fall of 2020 and the March of 2023. So then I had to mix it and master it. And that CD finally came to fruition. And it's currently, we just entered the national radio chart. So we are on the chart.
Hey,
so if you like jazz, it's a little funky. I play electric bass on this one. I play a Malo bass. Yeah. And my favorite, the Wotan, I'm playing it for a very long time. The same bass I play on the No Trick CD with David Pastorius. Yeah. And so that just came out. And I also started a new, I did also a Christmas CD. and that came out in the fall of 2020. Sorry, around Christmas 2022. It was a digital release, Christmas Everywhere. I used the same trio because I was already with Matt and Jason in the studio. I play upright bass on this one called Christmas Everywhere, where Jason Massal is playing drums and Matt King is playing keyboard, actually acoustic piano. And we have 8 Christmas songs. Half of them are his arrangements, the other half are my arrangements. And I guess I did a lot because I also started a new jazz camp, as we talked about last fall, in Sitka, Alaska, called the Sitka Jazz Week. And I have some nice visions for that. And that was a full success. And we talked about a possible collaboration with you. We were on the phone a little bit.
And, you have my... You know, I know. I read the first interview from 2009, and you mentioned Alaska, and you said you've been doing it at the time for like 11 years. So you've been doing that forever.
Yeah, 14 years, all the way up to the pandemic. I was working for an organization up there, putting up summer camps, and then we disconnected in 2021, and I wasn't doing anything in 22. Then I regrouped. I was still studying with I studied with Ron Carter for 6 years, and Ron is a great mentor. And I was asking him, I said, I do own property in Sitka, Alaska. I have to say that I own an island property, and I love to spend my summers there. I'm in the process of building a treehouse, but I'm very slow, but I'm little by little progressing. But I had this conversation with Ron, and I asked him, Ron, I said, you know, I don't really know what to do. They kind of canceled what I had built up for a while without me knowing about it. Anyway, there's 3 sides to every story. There's my side, their side, and the truth, you know. But the truth is that my heart is in Alaska and in Sitka. So I asked Ron, what should I do, you know? And Ron just said, just make sure you do it for the right reasons. And so, which got me thinking a lot. I did some soul searching and came to the conclusion, I love Alaska, I love Sitka. And, you know, there was some, throughout the pandemic, I met some new people there. And there's this teacher, her name is Heather Gluth, who's really a powerhouse. She's an amazing vocalist. She's very soulful. You know, she and her husband, they run a local church. There's a lot of gospel music going on. And I connected with her, and she became the new music teacher of a boarding school there, which called the Mount Edgecamp High School, which has 450 students, native students from all over the state of Alaska. Guess what? They didn't have a music program for 7 years, or they had one, but not really jazz and vocal oriented and everything. So things kind of unfolded. I started collaborating with her. And so her family and herself and the students from this boarding school are the new focus, and they really need some help. I'm like, wow, I can help. So I think let's get something going together. And then I've connected to another new organization called the Sitka Music Festival. And I rented their hall, and they saw what we were doing, and they say, wow, you know, you guys are awesome. Let's continue this for the next year. And then I kind of stumbled into that organization, and they were about to put up a Christmas concert, and that got canceled. And I said, I can put a Christmas concert together. So I got my good friend Steve Hunt from Boston, great keyboard player. He played with Stanley Clarke, and he played with Alan Holdsworth for many years. So I flew him up, and I put up a Christmas jazz concert. It's called Jazzmas. So I kind of stumbled into a new surrounding, so to speak. Although it's a fairly small town, but I got connected to some new people, and and then I called you also in the run-up to the Sitka Jazz Week about a possible collaboration, because we had Bernard Purdie come up, and he's going to come back for this Sitka Jazz Week 2024. And so we probably, after this Zoom meeting is over, I'll probably call you again and see how we can, because we talked about also the option of doing something on Zoom, maybe.
No,
It's
I
still,
gotta go to Alaska in person.
I know. I'm still trying to pull budget together. Maybe we get one of these amazing companies to sponsor the whole thing. Like I don't know, maybe Warwick, or I don't know, or Marlowe. Marlowe is a smaller company, or someone big. Fender, Tama. I don't know, whoever.
I think it's great what you're doing. I especially admire the education in the school
Yeah.
for the kids. You know what that segues into my next question, because
Yeah.
you studied with Ron Carter, and you've been around the music. You actually, I think you said Lionel Hampton was at the audition way back when you first auditioned for that band.
That's right.
I want to switch and put on my educator.
Okay.
For a minute.
Right.
For Bass Players Only is a bass instruction site. Got people from all over the world coming to For Bass Players Only every day to learn how to play bass from
Bass Players Only.
from pretty much every state in the US and maybe 50, 60 countries around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them are men. We have a fair bit of women, and that's actually growing. Most of them are in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I've got some students in their 80s as well. And they're not career bound. They're not looking to play sold out arenas to adoring fans all over the world. They want to get together with their buddies and play some classic rock riffs, or some blues shuffles, or maybe some walking bass or funk R&B or something like that. So I tell you that to give you a context, because I want to ask you what advice you can offer somebody like that who wants to play bass. What do you think they should be thinking about or striving for, or what questions should they be answering? And anything along those lines. What do you think?
Well, I have a couple of answers for you. The first one, I think there's no age or any number to learning. What I notice about, I recently also picked up vocal lessons. I studied with a great vocalist here in New York, Ann Phillips. I don't know if you heard of her. And I met a young, great bass player at the NAMM show, and I started studying with him as well. So I think what I had to realize is that there is no age is just a number. And another shout out to the Victor Wooten camps. I've been to 4 camps, in 2 camps in 2012 and 2 camps in 2014. And his camps are open to all ages. And what I learned, when you're in a room with all ages, but everyone wants to learn, there's a new energy created of learning. And transcendence, it's transcending what we think about ourselves. It's just this amazing energy. And when you're in a room, when you go to his camps and you're in a room with all ages, it's like a fire, and it lights up, and it works. I think it really works. And I think the most important thing about learning is that you acknowledge that you have the desire to learn, and that the next thing, which is really important, I think, not to judge about yourself. There's no judgment. I think the reason why people, when they get older, they program themselves by saying, oh, I cannot learn because I'm such and such age. I'm like, that's ridiculous. One thing I learned from Ron Carter is, when you study with Ron for many years, sometimes he doesn't want to talk to people after he's still doing a concert, because his mind and his music is still playing in his head. And he's thinking about, what notes did I play? How can I play better the next set? Did I play all the right notes? How did I accompany for Russell Malone? Or what set of changes I can do with the piano player, Rainy Roseness, or whoever he has on the Donald Vega, I wanted to say. So his mind is on the music, and he practices. When he had the injuries, he had these operations, he had a shoulder operation, he puts himself back on a serious practice schedule. So, and then, you see me wearing my t-shirt. I just had the Mike Longo reunion, and his mentor was Dizzy Gillespie. And that was Sunday. we had the big band reunion because March 10th, 2020 was the last time we played with Mike Longo and the Mike Longo Big Band. And we had the lead trombone player just passed, Sam Burtis. And I brought him up to Sitka. I brought him up to a program up in Nanaimo. And those guys, I got to know Sam and I got to know Mike. Mike is still practicing and Sam is still practicing. So I'm like surrounded by these people who are, you know, a few years older than you and I, and they're still practicing. So, I mean, I'm keeping an eye on what for bass players only, what you do, and you're doing all the right things. And my advice is, you know, I had always this thing in my heart, and that was kind of like, man, it's like a feeling of awe. If I could do this and if I could learn this, that would be amazing. That's how it starts. And then usually the mind comes in. It's like, well, you know, you have a job. How are you going to do that? Well, you know, you're 45, you're 68, you're 85, you're 28. And I had my big chance when I was 14 in a high school program. And the teacher said, I cannot do that. I mean, this is like the mind coming in and it's like pushing the fire out, you know. So the key is, I think for me, is when you have this awe about learning, it's like, man, that would be so cool. If I could do that, you have to protect that. You know, you really have to protect it, and you cannot anything interfere. And it starts with the mind, that you kind of protect that, and you don't allow the mind to be blowing out that fire, so to speak. And to me, people like Mike, who studied with Dizzy, and Dizzy was his mentor, and believe it or not, people don't know that, but Ron Carter was one of Mike's students. He actually studied piano with Mike in the 80s, and voice leading and chords. And then you want to check out, people are not too familiar with Ron Carter's Nonette with 4 cello players. So pretty much at the time when he came out with the 4 cello thing, that was around the time he studied with Mike Longo in terms of the voice leading, you know, how to voice lead 4 cellos for his Nonette and everything. It's kind of the same time frame. It definitely, I would say, if you hear the cello openings for certain pieces, it's the most beautiful harmony you ever heard. It's amazing what he did with that Nonette. And I'm always surprised how little people know about Nonette. Although he's touring, he went to Japan just before the pandemic, and then I think he went to Japan recently. He was there with Pat Metheny. So I don't think he hasn't back since, you know. But you know, I mean, matter of fact, Ron Carter started with Mike in the 80s. So he already played with Miles. He already did all those major recordings. So I'm asking the listener or the people who are watching this, so why would he go and study? Because he wants to study. So the fact is, if you want to go and study, you can study at any time. You got to allow yourself to pick out a teacher and to do the homework. You know, that's essential. I think you must have some great success stories with people, and it's just a great surrounding. I think the energy of learning outdoes the number we give ourselves in terms of wanting to learn. See, that's kind of like, you know, I know exactly what you go through because I went through that myself. I was with Mike, and I studied with Mike for 17 years. We did big band arrangement, we did voice leading, we did soloing, we did rhythm. But every time I played with Mike, there was something in my bass lines, and he stopped playing. He said, you just played this beautiful melody in your bass line, and then you broke the flow in your melody. And then he stopped, and I'm like, wow. And then I said, why did you stop? He's like, well, it really influenced the way how I'm soloing over the bass line. It happened several times. So I said to Mike, maybe I should study with Ron. And then Mike said, I think that would be a good idea. So then I was like, I already was playing and I worked, and I said, wow, you know, I'm going to study with Ron Carter. So I went to his gigs. I said, you know, I'm a student of Mike Longo, and Ron said, here's my email. I sent him an email. What happens? He didn't respond. So 2 months later, I sent another email. I went to another gig. Oh yeah, I got busy, you know, just send me another email. So I sent another email. It took literally half a year for me to set up the first lesson, you know, and then I went to a lesson and
Was
and
he
he was
wearing a suit and tie when he gave the lesson?
no.
Okay, that's the image. That's what I've always read and heard about him.
No, not on the. He's you know like you know he's Ron Carter. He's always dressed well, you know.
Yes.
But
I interviewed him. When was it? Last year, I think. What a gentleman! What a legend!
yeah, he looks like on the Zoom meetings. I mean, there were plenty of Zoom meetings. Ron is doing Zoom meetings. He was on the
Yeah.
Berkeley bass department. Steve Bailey had it on a Zoom meeting.
Yes.
The way he looks on a Zoom meeting, that's pretty much the way he looks when you take a lesson with him.
Well, let me ask you about you because you touched on this before. You said Ron Carter doesn't always like to talk to people after performing because he's thinking about the next set. How did I play? How can I play better?
Yeah.
Can you go a little deeper in it? Because you were talking about people practicing, whether they're 45 or 68 or however old they are. What would be good for those people to practice? If you've been playing for 40 years, what do you practice?
Well, the first thing is the mindset. Forget about your age, number one. Allow yourself to be a beginner, number two. You got to allow yourself to like, okay, you know, Mike talked about it too, you know. Ron talks about it basically, you know, just like you swipe how you call it, you know, you take all the stuff off the table. And that's a practice in itself, a mentally practice. You got to practice mentally to get yourself into this mindset. Yeah, you got to keep the excitement. I mean, I want to learn this. And you got to allow yourself to keep this energy going. I think that's a mental practice before you sit down, because a lot of people, by the time they sit down, they already allow the mind to get in the way and you have no energy. So I think that's the very first practice, to allow yourself to be a student. I wanted to finish that story, but that's the end of the story. So when I started with Ron, I had to allow myself, Ron said, you know, play the F major scale. That's how he starts you out. And I'm like, F major scale? You know, I mean, I know the F major scale on the upright bass, 2 octaves, you know, with eyes closed, and you call me 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, I get up, I play you the F major scale. He wanted to hear the F major scale. I'm saying, okay. And it was in the beginning, taking lessons with Ron, he's like, he wanted to make sure that you follow his steps, you know. So I think the first thing about being a student, if someone studies with you, number one, you allow yourself to be a student. And if you have a teacher, you need to follow the steps the teacher is setting, right? So a lot of times, you know, if you have an experienced player and they take lessons again with a experienced musician, they want to talk about their experience. But no, you're signing up for their lessons. So shut up, you know, and open up your ears and allow them to guide you through their experience, right? And I heard that many times from different musicians. You know, someone signs up for a lesson and they start talking and explaining. Matter of fact, when I started studying with Mike Longo, I taped all my lessons. And I heard myself on the lesson, always explaining myself. And I said to myself, shut up, because I heard myself interrupting the teacher. So I said, I'm not going to do that anymore. So then it switched to that I really, when I listened back, that I could hear him talk about a certain subject. And the thing about Ron was, he said, no recording. In my lessons, you have to learn how to take notes. And Victor talked about it when you go to I don't know if you ever have been to a music nature camp or a bass nature camp. He said, you can record, but no videos. But I really want you to write down notes. He wants you to write things down. And that's a whole practice in itself. So I think, you know, those are the basic steps. When I started, you know, I started studying with Ann Phillips. I had like 9 vocal lessons, and now I'm trying to play the upright bass and sing a song. I have like 3 songs down, so to speak. And which is, I never thought I could do that, you know. And then halfway, I thought I just want to learn how to sing. And then halfway through the lessons, she's friends with Jay Leonard. She said, why don't you pick up your bass? I said, pick up my bass? You think I can do it? Yeah, you can do it. So I went back home and I sang the song. I did half notes, I did quarter notes, and I sang. And the thing is, for me, everyone talks about the bass players who come up and sing now, but in the Lionel Hampton Big Band, since you mentioned it, it seems to me everyone in the Lionel Hampton Big Band, they grab the microphone and they can sing a song, and the audience loves it. We play 2-3 songs, and Lionel Hampton, Hamp sang too. And he's not a great singer, but the audience just, if you play 2 or 3 instrumental songs and you go and you sing a song, the audience loves it. And Dizzy and Lionel, they were always about pleasing the audience. They're always about, you love the audience and you give something to the audience. And I'm still in that mindset, especially when I play in the Lionel Hampton Big Band. Lionel Hampton was known for another encore and another encore and another encore. He just wanted to give. That was his nature. So after all that instrumental music, if someone grabs the microphone and sings a song, the audience goes even more crazy. They're like, wow, that's awesome. So I'm like, I should be able to sing a song. I mean, and then also the guys in the band have so much fun, Jerry Weldon and Alex June and Lance Bryant and Anibal Martinez, all these great instrumentalists. I didn't even know they can sing till years later they pick up a microphone and sing a song. What a wonderful world. Sunny Side of the Street. The Nearness of You. And I'm like, I feel like I'm missing out on the tradition. That's what jazz players do. They sing a song. They don't have to be a great singer. But so anyway, I started to take vocal lessons, and halfway and said, pick up the bass. I'm like, okay, I pick up the bass, and then little by little, I was actually surprised how fast I learned. I was surprised how fast it went. And then I was singing and I was doing a little bass fill and I forgot the lyrics, so I'm like, no, I'm going back to half notes and everything. So it's a long answer, but I feel it's very personal because have 2 teachers right now and still I'm in touch with Ron. I get, we had a question about how to record an upright bass. I'm like, how do you record an upright bass? Where do you put the microphone? I had really issues. I did the Bach cello suites with Ron, and I studied them for 2 years. And now fingers, everything is with the fingers. Although I had bow lessons with him as well. But he wants to do the Bach cello suites with the fingers, and it's very hard to get a good sound. And I've been to the studio 3 times, I tried different settings and everything, and so we talked about it, and he gave some really good advice. And I want to, after 2 years practicing the cello suites, I'm like, I want to have them recorded because, you put a lot of time in these suites, but I don't see anyone on YouTube really doing the cello suites, although there's some beautiful recordings. Stanley plays it, Edgar Meyer plays them, and there's some amazing classical recordings, but it's kind of like to put in, I don't know how you feel about it. For me, it's like I need to finish this with a recording or a YouTube or something, but anyway, it's a good question you have, but the most important thing is allowing yourself to be a student and allow yourself to make mistakes. Victor talks about it. He talked about when you go to a music nature camp, he talks about, people have a hard time allowing themselves to do a mistake on their own instrument. But if you get them on a different instrument, they're like a kid. They're playing around and having fun and smiling, but then you give them their own instrument and they're like really hard on themselves. So
very true.
Make a long story short, the most important thing, and I think for what you're doing, and you're doing an amazing job, having all these classes and courses and all the ages, is just allow yourself to learn, number one, forget about your age, forget about your history, and really focus on the joy of learning. And I think that's the difference between like a baby or a toddler and a kid. They don't think, they just do. And I think allowing ourselves going back into this mind frame of just doing. And you can do that at any age. Matter of fact, my mother just turned 90. We went to her 90th birthday, November 26th. And and people, I don't never talk about my mother. She's a crafts teacher. She's doing ceramics and textile art. She has these great things she's doing on the textile framework and everything. Anyway, I was just there. I was actually twice last year. I was there in February and I was there in November. And,
where does she live?
Aachen, Germany. If you ever heard of King Charlemagne, that's the town where he had his castle. That was the town he had his castle. In German, you call him Karl der Große, but he was, the king of the Franks, which was most of Europe back 900 after, it's a long time ago. But Aachen, it's a beautiful town. Actually, matter of fact, the center of town is still intact. The town in the Second World War was destroyed 85 to 90%. But the center of town, it goes back to King Charlemagne. It's untouched, which is amazing. Anyway, she still teaches. She's still teaching students. And in February last year, we walked by this. There's a new crafts store in her neighborhood. And she said, "Oh, I just signed up for classes. She's doing this thing with ceramics. I really want to know how to do that better." I just look at her. I was just like, I'm like, well, the apple doesn't fall very far from its tree, and I learned so much by her saying that, and I was just like, wow, she signed up for a class, So I don't know. It just kind of, my life is still like a puzzle piece, things coming together, and putting them together, and. But so she's 90, she's now 91, and she signed up for a class. So
that's beautiful.
I love it. So it's just a confirmation of what you're saying, 85, 68, over 50. Matter of fact, I think, the age, you don't know how many students and the parents of my students, I hear it all the time when I was teaching. When I moved down in this area, I was teaching in Manhattan and Northern Jersey a lot. And the parents always like very supportive for their students, and it's like, yeah, I want them to do really well, and I wish I would still play an instrument. It's the parents sometimes, they're supporting the students, and they say, I wish I would have kept going. And I said, you can keep going. Why don't you keep going? Or they say, I really regret that I stopped. And sometimes the parents, they can be in their 30s, they can be in their 40s, 50s. Sometimes you have young parents, they're just turned 30 something, they had the children very early on. But I always hear these stories of the parents saying, oh, I wish I would have done that. So they are very supportive to their children to do music, but the parents sometimes, they have these regrets. And in my mind, I'm like, well, you can still go and take lessons, And
I used to work in a school. My family business was a school. I was there for 26 years. Mm-hmm. Media arts, radio, TV, broadcasting, graphic design, digital media. And a kid came in with his father to see about the kid going to school. The kid did not enroll, but the father did. Well, you remind me of that story. I thought that was great. Yeah, he went all the way through the course. Christian, this is great. I love everything you say. You make such a beautiful point, and I love.
Thank you.
And I hope you all are listening. Well, I didn't ask you this question during any of the previous interviews, so I want to ask you now. What would you be if you were not a bass player? Something outside of music?
Well, that's a very good question, because I think many of us, when the pandemic started, especially musicians, you had no gigs or something, everyone started practicing Zoom, but I think we didn't really know what was going to happen, right, in terms of the long run. So I couldn't, I wasn't thinking about leaving the United States or anything like that, but I could go to Alaska. So I thought about it a lot, and I just had to talk with my girlfriend about it. It's things we talked about it. I mean, you know, my property, I don't have anything. I'm building a tree house. I have a tarp over it and anything, you know. But I thought in my mind, you know, because back then the property was very affordable and I paid it off. And so in my mind, I thought, you know, I could sell my condo I have here. And I'm like, I could live off the money and move to Alaska. You know, I don't have to do music. I could have a modest lifestyle in Alaska, living on an island. I met a guy who lived on the island. I have a property for 16 years, raised a family there. And his name is Jerry Zugan. He's from has Czech background. You know, he's from Eastern Europe. And, and I talked to him. I know him. I have his, sometimes I text him, we have coffee, you know. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, it's not about doing, but I thought, you know, if I wouldn't have to go and do gigs and teach and workshops and do CDs and recordings, I'm like, I could have a life just being there. And I thought, well, I could live on the island. I could have some students, you know, but in terms of not doing music, so I already thought about an alternative life without being on the East Coast and everything. So I could live there in a modest way. You know, the winters would have been pretty cold in a tree house platform with a tarp, but I think I would get it done really quickly, having a roof over my head and a stove in there. But
nights are pretty long too.
The nights are pretty long too.
At certain times of the year. And
we just had a major storm. I heard from my neighbors. I'm like, that was a major storm, and well, I think I grew up, my uncle was a farmer in Germany. He had a farm. And I think I could see myself, you know, a farm life, you know, where you have raising your chickens and you live off the farm. I was there from age 6 to 18. Most of my vacation I spent on the farm. I was mostly interested in driving the tractor and doing all the plowing the field and putting the seeds in, and my uncle was very trustworthy, and he showed me. But I drove the tractor when I was 7 or 8. He showed me how to drive the tractor. So by the time I was 10, 11, I was like, in my mind, I was always like thinking about driving the tractor, you know. But I mean, it was
very different life than living in Boston or New York or
yeah, absolutely. But you know what? It's great. You wake up and you know, you don't have that kind of worry or things you worry about or thinking about how things turn out. I'm basically freelancing, so you don't have these, you know, your schedule is pretty set. You know, you wake up and that's what you do. And it's kind of a worry-free life being a farmer, I think. I mean, you know, there are other things. We just saw big demonstrations in Europe, or the farmers on the streets and everything. I mean, there are other things you worry about. But I think I could see myself living on a farm and, you know, being a farmer, you know, for my own use or doing something for a regional market or the market in the area. I think I could go back to that, you know.
Send me some produce if you ever do that.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, things are actually picking up again. And as I said, Hip to the Skip, that new CD, Christian Fabian Trio, we just entered the Jazz Week chart and, you know, and things looking really promising, you know, but that's something I could imagine doing. Yeah.
Glad to hear it. It's so great catching up with you. Let's not wait another 6 years or whatever till we.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Great seeing you again at NAMM in person. Congratulations on the Spock bass and
thank you.
Anything else? Say hello to Gerald. How do you
Gerald? Say? You got it. Gerald.
Give him my best. I haven't seen him. I think the last time I saw him was in London in 2019 at the London Bass Guitar Show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, it's so great. And I really love what you said. It's
thank you.
Great things to think about.
Thanks for having me. And don't forget, for Bass Players Only, that's your place to find anything you're looking for bass related.
Thank you so much for your kind words. I didn't even pay him to say that. You're watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman. If you've ever wanted to learn bass, you should know that right now there are thousands of people inside the For Bass Players Only community. A lot of them over 50, because it doesn't matter how old you are, says
that's Christian, right,
and says me. And they are having the time of their life playing bass, playing the music that they love, and just enjoying it like nothing else. You should come join them to experience that incredible
Absolutely.
transformation for yourself. You're never too old to groove, so let's play bass. Thanks again to my good friend
Okay.
Christian Fabian. I will see you all right here next week, same time, same place. In the meantime, let's play bass.